The sharp sound of a sneaker box snapping shut echoed through the luxurious penthouse as Alex Kingsley slammed his laptop shut in frustration. His chest tightened, his palms sweaty. The Inferno X1 sneakers, the rarest, most exclusive shoes on the planet, were sold out within seconds of their release. "How is this even possible?" Alex shouted, his voice bouncing off the marble walls. His heart raced as he scrolled through resale websites. Prices had skyrocketed to tens of thousands of dollars, nothing his billionaire father couldn't afford, but Carter Kingsley had rules. And one of them, no frivolous spending on status symbols. Alex threw his phone onto the plush couch, his mind racing. He thought of Jason Green, his smug classmate who would undoubtedly wear those sneakers to school tomorrow, ready to humiliate him in front of everyone. Jason's mocking voice echoed in his head. "Not everything's for sale, Alex. Even your dad's billions won't get you these." The thought burned him inside. "Dad!" Alex stormed into the study, his father's sanctuary lined with shelves of books and awards from his tech empire. Carter looked up from his desk, his face calm but firm. "They're sold out," Alex blurted. "You have to get them for me. Call someone, buy them at any cost. I don't care how much it is." Carter leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "And if I say no?" Alex's jaw tightened. "You don't get it, Dad. I need these shoes. Jason." "Jason?" Carter interrupted, raising an eyebrow. "Let me guess. You're worried about looking bad in front of him." Alex felt his face flush. "This isn't about Jason. It's about me. I deserve them." Carter sighed, leaning forward, his gaze piercing. "Deserve? Tell me, Alex, what exactly have you done to deserve them?" Alex froze, his father's words cutting deeper than he expected. Carter continued, his voice steady but firm. "The world doesn't owe you anything, Alex. If you want something, earn it." The tension was suffocating. Alex clenched his fists, muttering under his breath, "Fine. If you won't help me, I'll figure it out myself." But Carter's voice stopped him as he turned to leave. "Be careful what you're willing to do for something so trivial, son. You might not like what you find out about yourself." The weight of those words hung in the air, but Alex ignored them. He was determined. Those shoes would be his, no matter what it took. Once Alex was out of sight, Carter leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. His gaze drifted to a photograph on his desk. A younger version of himself, standing barefoot outside a shabby apartment, his hand clutching his first paycheck. His smile in the photo didn't match his reality at the time. It was a reminder of where he came from and how far he'd come. Carter had grown up in a tiny two-bedroom apartment with peeling wallpaper and no heating during the harsh winters. His mother worked 2 jobs, cleaning houses by day and sewing clothes by night, while his father was often unemployed due to health issues. Every day, after school, Carter delivered newspapers and washed dishes at a local diner, handing most of his earnings to his parents. But there was one moment that had etched itself into his memory forever. It was a bitterly cold evening in January. Carter had been delivering newspapers as the snow fell in thick, heavy flakes. His sneakers, already worn thin, finally gave out. The soles split in half, exposing his wet socks to the icy ground. He stopped on the side of the road, shivering as he wrapped his sneakers in duct tape he'd carried for emergencies. The tape barely held, and by the time he'd finished his route, his toes were numb. Back home, he warmed them against the radiator, blinking back tears of frustration. He hadn't cried because of the cold. It was because he couldn't afford new shoes. The next day at school, he faced the snickers and stares of his classmates. "Nice shoes, Carter," one of them sneered, pointing at the duct tape wrapped around his feet. Carter clenched his fists but stayed silent. He knew that words wouldn't change anything. Instead, he channeled his anger into determination. "One day," he whispered to himself, "I'll make it so my family never has to go through this again." That determination fueled Carter through years of relentless work. He saved every penny he could and taught himself to code by borrowing books from the library. Eventually, he built a small software company in his garage. It wasn't easy. He'd faced sleepless nights, countless failures, and even moments when he thought about giving up. But he pushed through, eventually creating a product that caught the attention of investors. Now, sitting in his luxurious study, surrounded by accolades, Carter thought about the journey it had taken to get here. He glanced down at the small, battered sneakers he kept in a locked box, his old sneakers from that snowy night still wrapped in duct tape. They were a symbol of his struggles, a reminder of the value of hard work and resilience. Carter's hand hovered over the box for a moment before he sighed and leaned back. He thought of Alex, his son, who had never known a day without comfort or privilege. Carter had given Alex everything he'd never had growing up: the best schools, the latest gadgets, a luxurious home. Yet, somehow, Alex seemed ungrateful, entitled, and unable to appreciate what he had. Had he failed as a father? Had he tried so hard to give Alex a better life that he'd forgotten to teach him the value of effort? Carter's thoughts were interrupted by a buzz on his phone. It was a text from the person he'd called earlier. "I'll keep an eye on Alex. Let me know if you need me to step in." Carter stared at the message for a long moment before typing back, "No interference. He has to learn this on his own." As he put his phone down, a sense of unease settled over him. He hoped Alex would rise to the challenge, but he couldn't shake the fear that his son might fail. That evening, Alex paced his room, Carter's words echoing in his head. "The world doesn't owe you anything. If you want something, earn it." He clenched his fists. What does he know about my world? About what it's like to be judged for everything you don't have? His thoughts spiraled back to Jason Green, the smug smile, the mocking tone, and the crowd of kids who'd laughed at him. Alex sat down at his desk and opened his laptop. He scrolled through resale sites, each price tag more outrageous than the last. $20,000, $30,000. Some even hit $50,000. His allowance wouldn't cover it, and asking his dad was clearly out of the question. Then, buried deep in a sneaker forum, he found it. A post that made his heart race. A seller claimed to have a pair of Inferno X 1 in his size, slightly used but authentic. The price? Negotiable. Alex's hands shook as he typed a message to the seller offering $15,000, every penny of his savings. A reply came almost instantly. "Meet me tomorrow. Alley behind 14th and Madison. Cash only." Alex stared at the message. Excitement and unease churned in his chest. An alley? Cash? It felt sketchy, but this was his chance. He couldn't back out now. Meanwhile, Carter sat in his study, scrolling through an app on his phone. The GPS tracker he'd secretly installed on Alex's phone lit up on the map. He wasn't proud of invading his son's privacy, but after their argument, he felt it was necessary. He frowned as Alex's location popped up. It wasn't near school, a friend's house, or anywhere familiar. Instead, it was in a part of the city Carter recognized from his early years, a place he'd worked hard to avoid ever since. He dialed the contact he'd reached out to earlier. "Follow him," he said, his tone clipped. "Make sure he's safe. Don't interfere unless it's absolutely necessary." The voice on the other end responded, "Understood." Carter set down his phone and stared out the window, his mind racing. He wanted Alex to learn from his mistakes, but how far was too far? The next evening, Alex arrived at the alley behind 14th and Madison, his heart pounding. The streetlights buzzed faintly above him, casting long, eerie shadows on the graffiti-covered walls. He clutched an envelope stuffed with cash, his palms slick with sweat. A shadow moved in the distance. A man stepped forward, his face obscured by a hood. "You, Alex?" the man asked, his voice low and rough. "Yeah," Alex said, his voice steady despite the knot in his stomach. "You got the shoes?" The man nodded and pulled out a worn shoebox from his backpack. Alex's breath caught as he opened it. There they were, the Inferno X1, gleaming even in the dim light. They looked perfect. $15 grand, the man said, holding out his hand. Alex hesitated for a moment, doubt flickering in his mind. Is this really worth it? He shook off the thought and handed over the cash. The man began counting the money, but before he could finish, the sound of screeching tires filled the alley. A car skidded to a stop, headlights blinding them both. "Police! Hands in the air!" a voice barked. Alex froze, the shoebox clutched to his chest. Two officers stepped out of the car, their guns drawn. "Step away from the package," one of them shouted. "What? No, I just bought these," Alex protested, his voice trembling. The officer glanced at the seller. "We've been tracking this guy for weeks. Kid, you just walked into an illegal smuggling operation." Alex's stomach dropped. Illegal smuggling? What have I done? At the station, Alex sat in a cold interrogation room, his head in his hands. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, their harsh glow amplifying his misery. He replayed the events in his mind over and over, trying to figure out where he'd gone wrong. When the door finally opened, Carter walked in, his expression unreadable. Alex looked up, his relief quickly replaced by shame. "I can explain," Alex started, but Carter raised a hand to silence him. "Save it," Carter said, his tone cold. He turned to the officers. "Can I take him home now?" After a brief discussion, the officers let Alex go, but not without a stern warning. "You're lucky, kid. Next time, we won't be so lenient." The ride home was silent, the air heavy with unspoken words. When they pulled into the driveway, Carter turned off the engine and faced Alex. "You think this is what being a man looks like?" Carter asked, his voice calm but sharp. "Sneaking around, risking everything for a pair of shoes." Alex glared at him, his frustration boiling over. "You don't get it, Dad. You've never understood what it's like to have everyone look at you like you're nothing." Carter's jaw tightened, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "You think I don't know what it's like to feel worthless? To want to prove yourself? Let me show you something." Carter led Alex to his study and pulled a small, locked box from a drawer. Inside were a pair of battered, duct-taped sneakers. "These were mine," Carter said, holding them up. "I wore these while delivering newspapers at 5 a.m., saving every penny so I could buy my first computer. Do you know why I keep them?" Alex shook his head, his anger giving way to curiosity. "To remind me of what it feels like to earn something. Real success isn't about what you own, it's about what you build." The words stung, but Alex wasn't ready to let go of his pride. "That's easy for you to say. You already made it." Carter sighed, setting the sneakers down. "You want those shoes? Fine, but you'll earn them, my way." The next morning, Carter handed Alex a handwritten list. The paper was simple, unadorned, but its contents made Alex groan. Tasks for the month. Volunteer at the local homeless shelter every Saturday. Tutor underprivileged kids struggling with math. Do yard work for the elderly neighbors in the community. Help clean and organize the storage room at the shelter. Complete these, Carter said, his tone firm, or forget about the shoes. I'm giving you the chance to earn them. Alex wanted to argue, to fight back against what he saw as an unnecessary punishment, but something in his father's gaze stopped him. Instead, he muttered, "Fine," and stormed out of the room. Alex's first Saturday at the shelter was nothing like he'd expected. The air smelled faintly of cleaning supplies and old wood. Volunteers bustled around, sorting donations and serving food to the long line of people waiting outside. "Hey there!" A cheery voice pulled Alex out of his sulking. He turned to see a boy about his age with messy dark hair and a bright smile. "You must be new. I'm Leo." "Yeah," Alex replied flatly, stuffing his hands into his pockets. "My dad's making me do this." Leo laughed. "I get it. My mom used to drag me here too, but I kinda started liking it. You'll see, it's not so bad." Alex wasn't convinced. For the first few hours, Alex shuffled through tasks with zero enthusiasm. He sorted canned goods, swept the floor, and helped set up the dining area. The work felt endless, and Alex's resentment grew with every chore. At one point, he noticed Leo chatting with a group of younger kids, all of them laughing as they worked together. Alex couldn't understand it. What was so fun about this? Later, as they were cleaning up, Leo noticed Alex's sour expression. "Not having fun yet?" he teased. Alex shot him a glare. "What's so fun about this? It's just work." "Maybe," Leo said with a shrug, "but it's work that matters. You'll see." By the third Saturday, something began to shift. Alex found himself watching Leo more closely. The boy was always smiling, always quick to help someone in need. It didn't make sense to Alex. What could someone like Leo possibly have to smile about? One afternoon, as they were organizing donations in the storage room, Alex finally asked, "Why are you so happy all the time?" Leo paused, then smiled softly. "I wasn't always. My mom and I had it rough after my dad left. She works 3 jobs now and we still struggle, but I don't know. I guess I learned to focus on the good stuff." "Like what?" Alex asked, genuinely curious. Leo glanced at a worn basketball sitting in the corner of the room. "Like this place, and basketball. I love playing whenever I get the chance, even though these old sneakers make it hard." He lifted a foot to show the duct tape holding his shoes together. For the first time, Alex felt a pang of guilt. He thought of the Inferno X1, the lengths he'd gone to for a pair of shoes he didn't even need. And here was Leo, doing everything he could with shoes that barely held together. Over the next few weeks, Alex and Leo began spending more time together. They worked side by side, chatting and joking as they completed their tasks. Leo taught Alex how to shoot a perfect free throw, and Alex helped Leo with math problems during breaks. As their bond grew, Alex started to see the world through Leo's eyes. He began to appreciate the shelter, not as a punishment, but as a place where people came together to make a difference. One afternoon, Leo mentioned the shelter's upcoming basketball tournament. "It's a fundraiser," he explained. "We play against other community teams to raise money for supplies and stuff." "Are you playing?" Alex asked. Leo shook his head. "Not this year. We're short on players and, well, I don't have the right shoes for it anyway." Alex frowned. "What if I played? Could we make a team?" Leo's eyes lit up. "You'd do that?" Alex grinned. "Yeah, let's do it." The tournament gave Alex something to work toward, and for the first time he felt genuinely excited about something that didn't involve wealth or status. He practiced with Leo every evening, working on his skills and building their team. But just when things were starting to look up, word got out at school. Jason Green, ever the opportunist, signed up with his own team, determined to crush Alex on the court. "You think you've got what it takes to beat me, Kingsley?" Jason sneered one morning. "You're out of your league." Alex didn't rise to the bait. Instead, he focused on his training, fueled by the encouragement of Leo and the other shelter kids. The night before the tournament, Alex lay awake in bed, his mind racing. The stakes felt impossibly high. He wasn't just playing to prove himself to Jason. He was playing for Leo, for the shelter, for something bigger than himself. Downstairs, Carter watched from the shadows as Alex shot hoops in the driveway, the faint glow of the floodlights casting long shadows across the court. For the first time, Carter felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, he thought, Alex is finally starting to understand. The day of the tournament arrived, and the gym was buzzing with energy. The walls were decorated with banners, and the stands were packed with spectators, families, friends, and community members who had come to support the fundraiser. Alex stood on the court, adjusting his sneakers, his heart pounding in his chest. He looked over at Leo, who was beaming with excitement despite wearing his duct-taped sneakers. "This is it, man," Leo said, clapping Alex on the shoulder. "We've got this." Alex nodded, trying to steady his nerves. Across the court, Jason Green and his team sauntered in, their confidence palpable. Jason smirked as he caught Alex's eye. "Ready to get embarrassed, Kingsley?" Alex ignored him, focusing instead on the cheers from the shelter kids sitting in the stands. Among them was Carter, seated inconspicuously in the back, watching his son with an expression of cautious optimism. The whistle blew, and the game began. Jason's team dominated from the start. They were faster, more coordinated, and clearly more experienced. Alex's team struggled to keep up, fumbling passes and missing shots. By the end of the first quarter, they were trailing 12-4. On the sidelines, Leo tried to rally the team. "Come on, guys, we've got this. Just play smart." But the pressure was getting to Alex. Every time he touched the ball, he felt Jason's mocking gaze. His mind raced with thoughts of failure. What if I let everyone down? What if Jason's right about me? By halftime, the score was 28-14. The crowd was quiet, their energy waning. As the team huddled together during the break, Alex finally spoke up. "I know this isn't going how we planned," he admitted, his voice steady despite the lump in his throat. "But we didn't come here to give up. This isn't just about winning, it's about showing them we belong here." Leo grinned. "That's the spirit." Alex looked at each of his teammates, determination shining in his eyes. "Let's leave everything we've got on the court." The second half began, and something shifted. Alex's team played with a new energy, diving for loose balls, fighting for rebounds, and working together like never before. Alex found his rhythm, scoring back-to-back layups and setting up his teammates for open shots. Jason's team started to falter under the pressure, their overconfidence turning into frustration. Jason, in particular, grew more aggressive, shoving Alex during a rebound and earning a warning from the referee. By the start of the fourth quarter, Alex's team had closed the gap to 32-28. The Shelter kids erupted in cheers, their excitement infectious. With 2 minutes left on the clock, the score was 35-32 in Jason's favor. Alex's team had possession, and Alex dribbled up the court, his heart pounding. Jason lunged at him, trying to steal the ball, but Alex spun away, passing it to Leo, who sank a mid-range jumper. The crowd roared. The score was now 35-34. Jason's team tried to stall, passing the ball around to run down the clock. But Alex, fueled by sheer determination, intercepted a pass and sprinted toward the basket. Jason was right behind him, and as Alex went up for a layup, Jason shoved him mid-air, sending him crashing to the floor. The referee blew the whistle. "Foul! 2 free throws!" Alex stood at the free throw line, the gym falling silent. He dribbled the ball, his hands trembling. He glanced at the stands where the Shelter kids watched with bated breath. Then his eyes found Carter, who gave him a small nod of encouragement. Alex took a deep breath and shot. The ball hit the rim and bounced out. The crowd groaned. He closed his eyes, blocking out the noise. "Prove it to yourself," he thought. "You don't need to be perfect, you just need to try." He shot again. Swish! The score was tied, 35-35 with only 30 seconds left. Jason's team inbounded the ball, but Alex's defense was relentless. He forced a turnover, grabbing the ball with 10 seconds left. The crowd was on their feet as Alex dribbled to the three-point line. Time slowed as he squared up for the shot, Jason charging toward him. Alex released the ball just as Jason's hand grazed his wrist. The buzzer sounded as the ball arced through the air. It hit the backboard, rolled around the rim, and dropped in. The gym erupted. Alex's team had won, 38-35. Leo tackled Alex in a hug, laughing as the Shelter kids stormed the court. For the first time, Alex felt something he couldn't put into words, a mix of pride, gratitude, and belonging. From the back of the gym, Carter smiled, his heart swelling with pride. He did it, he thought. He really did it. That evening, Alex sat on the steps of the Shelter, the golden glow of the setting sun casting long shadows. His hands were still trembling from the adrenaline of the game, but his heart felt lighter than it had in months. Leo plopped down beside him, grinning from ear to ear. "Man, that was incredible. I didn't think we were going to pull it off, but you..." Leo punched Alex lightly on the arm. "You were unstoppable." Alex chuckled. "I couldn't have done it without you." He glanced down at Leo's sneakers, the duct tape peeling from the corners after weeks of wear. His smile faltered. "Hey," Alex said after a moment, "what size shoe do you wear?" Leo blinked, caught off guard by the question. 10. Why?" Alex nodded but didn't say anything. He stared out at the horizon, his mind already made up. The next morning, Alex stood at the front door of the shelter with the shoebox in his hands. Inside were the Inferno X1 sneakers, perfect, untouched, and gleaming. He'd taken them out of the box Carter had given him the night before, knowing they didn't belong to him anymore. When Leo saw the box, his jaw dropped. "No way," he said, shaking his head. "Alex, I can't." "Yeah, you can," Alex interrupted, pushing the box into Leo's hands. "You deserve them way more than I do." Leo's eyes filled with tears as he opened the box, his fingers trembling. "These are for me?" Alex grinned. "You're going to need them for next year's tournament. We're going to win again, right?" Leo nodded, too choked up to speak. He pulled Alex into a tight hug, and, for the first time, Alex realized how much a small act of kindness could mean to someone. That evening, back at home, Alex found Carter waiting for him in the living room. The old, battered sneakers sat on the coffee table, next to the empty box where the Inferno X1 had been. Carter raised an eyebrow. "You gave them away, didn't you?" Alex nodded. "Yeah. Leo needed them more than I did." Carter leaned back, a rare smile tugging at his lips. "I'm proud of you, Alex." The words hit Alex like a tidal wave. He'd spent so much of his life trying to earn his father's approval, and now, hearing those words, he felt a warmth he hadn't known he was missing. "It's not about the shoes, is it?" Alex said quietly. Carter shook his head. "It never was. It's about what you're willing to fight for, and today, you fought for something bigger than yourself." Later that night, Alex sat in his room staring at the small box Carter had shown him weeks ago. Inside were the old duct-taped sneakers his father had worn as a teenager. Alex placed the box next to his basketball trophy from the tournament, the two items sitting side by side. They were a reminder of how far both he and his father had come, and a symbol of the lessons he'd learned along the way. Over the next few weeks, Alex continued volunteering at the shelter, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He and Leo became inseparable, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. At school, Jason Green tried to taunt Alex, but his words no longer had power. Alex had found something far more valuable than status or material possessions. He'd found purpose, friendship, and the understanding that true success came from what you gave, not what you took. One afternoon, Leo approached Alex with a basketball in hand. "Ready for a rematch?" he asked, grinning. Alex laughed, grabbing his own ball. "You're on!" As they jogged toward the court, Alex felt a sense of peace he hadn't known before. For the first time in his life, he wasn't chasing approval or trying to prove himself. He was simply living, and it felt incredible.